Tikun Olam Belize is a non-governmental organization that advocates for sex workers, their freedom to engage in that choice of revenue earner, and their human rights. Elisa Castellanos heads that organization, and she spoke to Love News on how and why her movement towards sex work advocacy began and where they are today in their efforts.
This organization is for sex workers, by sex workers, and it's for the defense of the human rights of sex workers. The organization, when I started back in 2006, we were really just I was working at another organization at the time, and we realized we were doing HIV prevention with sex workers. And I realized then as an advocate that we needed more information. Sex workers needed more to know someone in order to change a behavior from going to not using condoms to using condoms is not an overnight step. And sometimes the factors that affect somebody's ability to use or condoms, in particular, as we're speaking of, but there are other issues that affect that person: self-esteem, access to that condom. When they go to the clinic, are they discriminated? Is it easy for someone to walk into the clinic and get tested being a sex worker? So in Orange Walk, we came together with a group of sex workers and decided that we needed to organize ourselves and start moving towards a solution. So we applied and received NGO status and incorporation in 2011, became a legally registered and incorporated organization. And we worked in Orange Walk primarily with migrant women, migrant sex workers from neighboring countries. We also are an anti-trafficking organization, which means that we do referral and we work closely with the relative entities and departments to be able to promote information about anti-trafficking measures that are happening, or where victims can go for help if we come across any victims.
Castellanos went on to speak on what sex work entails, who is a sex worker, and the empowerment it brings to a woman.
We just recently received funding when we joined a regional network of in Latin America and the Caribbean called Red Trasex. And now this network basically has provided us with funding to be able to establish ourselves here in the city. So we have an office. As you can see, we're establishing ourselves. We have basic commodities paid. So for example, our rent, our building, we have a space to come in, our internet communications. We are, of course, still a small NGO, very small staff of 4 people who do really work across the country. With this Red Trasex funding, which is basically funding from the Global Fund, and it's part of a regional project being implemented in Latin America and the Caribbean, we have been able to secure this grant to be able to work now not only in Orange Walk but also to expand. And as a small grassroots NGO, we had already started working down south with Maya sex workers, Garifuna sex workers, and now in the city we're reaching out to Belizean women who engage in sex work. Because Renee, I think we're past the time when it doesn't happen. We can't deny it anymore. It's here, and I think that our concern now should be it's not to go out and save women, but it's really to go out and help women who have decided that sex work is the work that they want to do. It's viable for them, it's beneficial for them. Now what we have to do is ensure that these women are safe. So one of the objectives for Tikun Olam Belize is, of course, educating women, going out into the community and speaking with women who engage in sex work, whether it be you engage in sex work in a nightclub, in a bar, or whether it be you engage in sex work from home. We want to reach out to women, educate them, increase their legal literacy, and then in an eventual future, we want to look at legislative change and how we as a community-based organization can affect those changes for the greater benefit of all. And if there is law to be drafted, we would like to be part of that process, because you cannot draft legislation that will affect a certain population without the input, insight, experience, and consideration for that population. And in this case, it's female sex workers.
Tikun Olam is in the process of moving into their very first office location on Victoria Street in Belize City. Their ability to carry their outreach programs and to have a base comes through funding from Red Trasex, a network of women sex workers of Latin America and the Caribbean. Castellanos spoke of their relations with the Costa Rica-based organization.
We don't want to be defined by what we do, but defined by who we are as human beings, who we are as people. And really and truly, a sex worker is a woman who exchanges sexual services for payment. And that can be, it ranges anywhere from escorting to full-fledged intercourse, exchange for sexual intercourse and sexual services. We like to say, that a lot of times culturally people will say, oh, sell bodies. It's not, we don't sell our bodies. We sell an experience into someone's sexuality. And we are paid for that service. And it's not everybody who is cut out to do that. And I'm not saying that every woman should be a sex worker. I find that sex work can be extremely empowering on a personal level, and it can really teach you about negotiating very directly what you want, knowing your value, adhering to that value, and providing an excellent service and being able to provide for yourself to further your career, to further your education or that of your children, your family, your members, whoever is a dependent on you as a sex worker, as a human being. So really we wanted to move away from sexualizing sex workers or focusing on the activities, but really letting our humanity define us rather than our jobs.
Retrosex is made up of organizations of female sex workers and or former sex workers out of 15 countries, including Belize, Chile, Colombia, Peru, Mexico, Honduras, and Nicaragua. In our evening news, we will have a detailed report on sex workers in Belize sometime in our newscast.